Matthew McConaughey's rise to stardom is one of the most fascinating stories in Hollywood, not because of how easily fame came to him, but because of the relentless authenticity with which he built it. Born on November 4, 1969, in Uvalde, Texas, Matthew wasn't raised in luxury or privilege. He grew up in a blue-collar household where his father, Jim McConaughey, ran a small oil pipe supply business, and his mother, Kay, was a teacher. From a young age, he was taught that life was about grit, discipline, and character, 3 words that would later define his journey. He wasn't the loudest kid in the room, but even as a teenager, there was something magnetic about him, a kind of natural charm that made people lean in when he spoke. In school, McConaughey was a good student, but more importantly, he was a thinker. He often questioned rules, not to rebel, but to understand why they existed. After finishing high school, he wanted to travel the world and learn from experience, not just textbooks. He spent a year as an exchange student in Australia, a time that profoundly shaped his perspective. Living away from home, washing dishes for money, and dealing with loneliness gave him humility. He learned that life doesn't hand you comfort, you create it yourself. That lesson would become the foundation of his mindset as he entered the film industry. When McConaughey returned to Texas, he enrolled at the University of Texas at Austin to study film. He didn't start off planning to become an actor, he wanted to be behind the camera, directing and producing stories. But destiny had other plans. One night at a bar, he met a producer who offered him a small role in Richard Linklater's coming-of-age film Dazed and Confused, 1993. That small role, of David Wooderson, became the spark that changed everything. His line, "All right, all right, all right," would become not only one of the most iconic quotes in movie history but also a mantra that symbolized his entire life philosophy: confidence, ease, and staying true to who you are. What made McConaughey special wasn't just his looks or talent, it was his attitude. He had this natural charisma that came from his grounded upbringing. He didn't act to impress people, he acted to tell the truth. Hollywood noticed. Soon after Dazed and Confused, roles started coming his way, small at first, but each one built his reputation. His breakthrough came with A Time to Kill, 1996, where he delivered a performance that was both emotional and commanding. Standing in that courtroom scene, delivering the famous line, "Now imagine she's white," he didn't just act, he owned the moment. The film turned him from an unknown into a rising star. But Hollywood fame can be deceptive. After his breakout, studios wanted him for romantic comedies, The Wedding Planner, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Failure to Launch. These movies made him bankable, but deep down, McConaughey felt trapped. After stepping away from the spotlight in the mid-2000s, Matthew McConaughey entered one of the most defining seasons of his life. It was a time of silence, reflection, and self-discovery, a period where he learned that stepping back is sometimes the boldest step forward. In a world obsessed with constant visibility and validation, McConaughey's decision to pause his career confused Hollywood. Producers stopped calling. The scripts stopped coming. Tabloids began whispering that he had faded, that his charm had run out, that his time was over. But what they didn't realize was that McConaughey wasn't gone, he was preparing for his greatest chapter yet. During those years away, McConaughey reconnected with his identity as a man, not a movie star. He married Camila Alves in 2012, a relationship that grounded him deeply. He often said that meeting her was like seeing the greatest woman I'd ever imagined, and she was real. Together, they built a life rooted in love, balance, and faith, far from the chaos of Hollywood lights. Being a husband and father taught him the kind of humility that fame could never offer. His priorities shifted from chasing validation to nurturing meaning. He began journaling, writing about gratitude, reflection, and what he called green lights, those moments in life when the universe signals you to move forward. That philosophy became the seed for his future bestseller Greenlights, which would later inspire millions worldwide. When he finally decided to return to acting, he did so on his own terms. His comeback began with The Lincoln Lawyer in 2011, a film that not only revived his career but reintroduced him to audiences as a man of depth, control, and conviction. He wasn't the light-hearted romantic lead anymore, he was a storyteller with fire in his eyes. Critics called it the McConaughey's, a rebirth of Matthew McConaughey as one of the finest actors of his generation. But to him, it wasn't a reinvention, it was a revelation of who he truly was all along. Then came Mud, 2012, a poetic Southern drama where he portrayed a fugitive with a heart full of secrets. His performance was raw, human, and haunting. Audiences could see it, something had changed in him. There was a deeper layer of authenticity, a quiet intensity that could only come from someone who had faced failure and emerged wiser. Each role after that, Magic Mike, Dallas Buyers Club, True Detective, Interstellar, became a masterclass in transformation. He no longer sought fame, he sought truth. He once said, "The truth is like a virus. You can't kill it. It's always there waiting to be rediscovered." Dallas Buyers Club would become his ultimate redemption. The story of Ron Woodroof, a man fighting both disease and a broken system, mirrored McConaughey's own defiance against Hollywood's limitations. He lost over 40 pounds to embody the role, not for attention but for authenticity. Matthew McConaughey's life is not just a story of fame, it's the story of transformation, grit, and rediscovery of purpose. Born in Uvalde, Texas, in 1969, Matthew wasn't raised in glamour or privilege. He was raised in the kind of home where discipline met love head-on. His father, a man of raw energy and unshakable conviction, taught him toughness, while his mother instilled charm, optimism, and charisma. But what's fascinating about Matthew's success is not how he became famous, it's how he lost himself, found himself again, and built a life rooted in authenticity, purpose, and meaning. Growing up, McConaughey didn't dream of being an actor. In fact, his original plan was to become a lawyer. He was studying law at the University of Texas, but fate had something far different in store for him. One night, he picked up a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by O.G. Mandino, and that changed his life. The book spoke about the power of following your destiny, even when it defies logic. Soon after, he switched majors to film, unsure of where it would lead. But that single decision planted the seed for everything that followed. His early days in Hollywood were like many others, full of auditions, rejections, and moments of deep uncertainty. But then came 1993. A small role in Dazed and Confused changed everything. It was supposed to be a minor part, just a few lines, but McConaughey turned it into something unforgettable. When he said, "All right, all right, all right," he didn't just deliver a line, he created a legend. That moment launched his career and introduced the world to a man whose natural charm and effortless confidence seemed unstoppable. Throughout the 90s, McConaughey became the golden boy of Hollywood, starring in romantic comedies and action films. He was handsome, charismatic, and loved by audiences everywhere. But behind the smile, he felt something missing. He realized he was living out the world's version of success, not his own. He was trapped in a cycle of fame and attention that didn't fulfill him. So, at the height of his career, he did something few would dare, he walked away. McConaughey took a break from acting, rejecting roles that paid millions because they didn't speak to his soul. For nearly 2 years, he disappeared from the spotlight. Hollywood thought he had lost his mind. But what he was really doing was rebuilding his identity. He reconnected with his roots, spent time in nature, reflected deeply, and realigned with what mattered most. That period of silence became the foundation for his comeback, not just as a movie star, but as a man of depth and purpose. When he returned, it wasn't for just any role. It was for the kind that would test his limits, challenge his mind, and transform his career forever. His performance in Dallas Buyers Club in 2013 was nothing short of extraordinary. After winning his Oscar, most actors would have relaxed, soaked in fame, and chased comfort. But not Matthew McConaughey. For him, that golden statue wasn't the end of the road, it was just another green light, another signal to keep moving forward with courage and conviction. He had learned through years of struggle that every time you think you've made it, life throws you a new test to see if you truly understand what success means. So, rather than falling into complacency, he started looking inward again, reflecting, writing, and searching for the next meaningful chapter of his life. In Hollywood, McConaughey became known as the man who walked away and came back stronger. People were fascinated not only by his transformation but by how he stayed grounded despite the fame. He lived by a code that was simple yet profound: don't chase things. Attract them by being ready. It's the reason he never acted desperate for roles. He would say, "If I say yes to everything, my yes means nothing." That discipline, to say no when everyone expects a yes, became his superpower. It separated him from the crowd and made his career legendary. But success didn't come without sacrifice. During those 2 silent years away from Hollywood, McConaughey faced moments of doubt so deep that most people would have quit. He questioned if he'd ever act again, if his purpose had expired, if the world had forgotten him. Yet, instead of running from uncertainty, he used it as fuel. He journaled, meditated, traveled, and spent countless nights under Texas skies, writing his thoughts by firelight. He often says that the quiet moments, the ones nobody sees, are where a man's real character is built. That's where his next evolution began, not in a film studio, but in solitude. When Dallas Buyers Club reignited his career, he didn't just return to fame, he returned with intention. Soon came True Detective, a masterpiece that cemented him as one of the greatest actors of his generation. His portrayal of Rust Cohle wasn't acting, it was philosophy in motion. Every line he delivered, every stare into the void, carried the weight of a man who had seen life from every angle. He transformed television forever, showing that depth, intellect, and vulnerability could coexist in one character. Viewers didn't just watch Rust Cohle, they felt him. And that's the secret of McConaughey's genius: he doesn't act to impress, he acts to express. Beyond the screen, Matthew McConaughey turned into a voice of wisdom, part artist, part philosopher, part storyteller. When he wrote Greenlights, he didn't intend for it to be just another celebrity memoir. He wanted it to be a manual for life. Each story in that book, from wrestling a ram in Africa to being arrested naked while playing bongo drums, had a lesson hidden behind the humor. He called them greenlights, moments when life gives you permission to move forward.